Welcome back to MYV, the Mind Your Business podcast. Dane, there is bare things to go into, so anything you want to say quickly before I dive in?
Just good to see you, my brother. I hope you're well. Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah, lots happened. So, like you said, let's get cracking straight away.
The first thing I want to say though is I'm gonna say, guys, like and subscribe because I keep forgetting to say it. Yeah, so like and subscribe because the content is contenting. You get me? So yeah, and man's putting a lot of.
Let us know your content with the content, innit? And just yeah, and what we need to discuss and what kind of business we need to be minding still. So
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So that's it. Anyway, the first thing I'm gonna go into, bro, is the Wretch and Scorcher situation. And I know we're gonna be a bit late because this has been discussed, but I wanna approach it from a different perspective.
But it's also come. It's been discussed a long time ago, and it's just come back up anyway. So
yeah. I mean, that was as a result of Wretch 32's album campaign run.
Yeah.
And to which he sat down in an interview with ZZ Mills, and he was talking about the situation, which he's never done before. Everyone speculated. So basically, for people who don't know, Wretch 32 and Scorcher are two friends, two rappers in industry, in the UK industry. Scorcher had a baby for a particular woman, then went away for a bit. Can I say, yeah, he went to jail basically. Yeah, he went in jail, and you know, Wretch basically then became her partner in the time in which Scorcher was away. Bearing in mind, this is not Scorcher's girlfriend; it's the mother of his baby. So there's different speculations and people saying this and that about it. And long story short, the conversation he had with ZZ Mills around it, his answer, and I'm gonna try and remember exactly what he said, was not everything that is entertainment is entertaining, as is to say, this particular situation is not entertaining because it's people's lives, which is fair enough.
Absolutely,
I hear that. Then he said, but the one thing he will say is, in the court of the mind and heart, I think this is what he said, that sometimes the heart rules over the mind. So essentially what he's saying is, yeah, it's not ideal, but yeah, like nobody took anyone's girlfriend, but it is what it is, and it's kind of like, yeah, not ideal, but we are, and that's fine, because this is now, you're talking 10 years later. This happened 10 years ago. To which I think, yeah, and the reason why I've wanted to bring this up, because I feel like the one thing that gets missed, there's a couple of people that have actually highlighted the main issue, in my opinion, is that friends don't do that to each other.
Yep.
And regardless to whatever, yeah, there should be, we've spoken about this, and this is for the benefit of the community, because I feel like as man and man, there should be honor amongst men.
Agreed.
And without that, and we always talk about what benefits the community, you cannot build community if this is what we're doing. If every man was to do that to their brethren, there is no way we're going to have community. So my thing is, that behavior, that piece of behavior there is not something of an example for our community to look at and kind of laud in any way. I was a little bit disappointed when the way ZZ Mills was, she was brazen enough to answer the question, which was good, but wasn't kind of, her response, if I remember correctly, was kind of like, she hears people talk about it and just thinks, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, okay, cool. That just excuses man for doing what he did. You get me? So my thing will be this: it's not an example of what man should be doing within the community. Man and man should have honor amongst man. And Wretch has got to know this. You get me? Now, I will say this as well. I question the man them around them, because remember, they were in a group together.
Yeah, movement.
Sick group. Merkston, Getz,
amazing
Devlin,
group. They
Scorcher, Wretch, Bad Boy group.
Yeah, the potential for that group was insane. Massive, as well. Yeah.
So I know if that was happening in a circle of my mandem, we will be having words. So we might not ostracize the guy that did it. We might not say, you know, bun you and rare, but man would definitely be having words. And I think, and this is the thing, when it happened, nobody said anything, nobody cared, and I feel like that's because Wretch was more commercially inclined than what Scorcher was.
Yeah.
Scorcher's going in and out of jail at the time. I think Wretch, I don't know whether he brought out the Black and White album by then. Maybe this happened just after. I can't remember the timelines particularly, but it feels to me like people were reluctant to speak on it because of where Wretch was positioned in the industry versus what Scorcher was. You get me? And I feel like it's about positioning and money and commercial inclination over morals and honor amongst men. And I feel like that is a straight EDAT move. You get me? And guys that do that, I don't rate them. So I question if the man them within the movement didn't really have that conversation with Wretch. Yeah, that's funny to me. You get me? Because man should know what time it is. You get what I'm saying? Nobody should be doing that to their brethren. So that's the reason why I wanted to mention that, because not because of anything about it being entertaining. To be honest with you, I don't.
Nah, but not and I think that's part of the problem as well, is that it's one of these incidences that gets sensationalized over the music, which is relevant, and the artistry, which is relevant, and that's a big part of the culture now, where a large amount of the space in terms of discussing arts and culture within our community is too much dedicated to this kind of drama of who's sleeping with who, who's backbiting who, in terms of like sex and stuff like that as well. There's also been like a glorification of this kind of thing, where like Trey Songz used to call himself Mr. Steal Your Girl, and a lot of rappers seems to have this emphasis on not linking girls themselves, but linking girls that's already with other men. And and a lot of man is like, a lot of their lyrics include this idea that I'll take your girl, I'm doing thing with your girl, and a lot of this like and I'm not even just trying to be like prudish about it, but it's like, if you can get Pierre gal, why did you want a girl that's already with somebody else? And I've always found it to be kind of mad that like you know, someone like, I look at like someone like Amber Rose, who was with Kanye, then Wiz Khalifa, then the next rapper, then 21 Savage, and the next Don, and then I'm just like, when you look at rappers and the aesthetic they present in terms of the girls they can attract and talk about their sexual exploits, and then you see them and it's like Kim Kardashian was with Nick Cannon and Bow Wow and Ye and Reggie Bush and this next basketballer and Ray J, and you just...
But here's the thing though, bro, like none of them are friends. And to speak to the thing about a man saying, I'll take your girl,
which is even worse, that they're not even friends. So when you're actually friends, it makes it even worse. And don't get me wrong, that for me, like, so I've had this experience myself where I had a girl when I was like 17, then we broke up, I went to uni, and next thing I know, a guy from my school that I know is seeing her, and I'm like, that's kind of mad, because you're the kind of person that likes to talk about the girls I'm with, when really, obviously, you're secretly coveting them yourself. And then what? But the thing is, with me, and this is the thing, and what bothers me, I suppose, is that we are both aware that in our community, it can take something like this to be a catalyst for violence. And that's what's mad. Like, there's been like, I've seen like gangs split into two over this kind of thing, or man, there's a lot, there's prison cells full of man that's been betrayed by their brethren, got into beef over a girl or a baby mother, and things have escalated to the point where, you know, the consequences are fatal, and that's what bothers me as well. So for me, I was never that inclined, and I was like, I'm not gonna fight a man over a girl, especially if I'm not with the girl anymore. I don't tell no girl what they can do with their life if I'm not in a relationship with you anymore. But it was the bad minding that went on after that, where it was like his ego couldn't accept that his girl being with someone he knows, so ready to just do bare snaky shit and talk bare snaky shit about me, because his mind, I think in his head, he needed to feel like I was some kind of waste man, so that he didn't feel like he was, I don't know, sloppy seconds or something like that, and all the rest of it. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to talk the way about the girl, and obviously you've not alluded to the girl as well. It's to do with man them and their morals. And you know, I respect Wretch 32 in terms of his approach to artistry. I think that there's been a lot, you know, historically, he's been definitely someone who's bridged the gap in terms of evolving British sound, and obviously being someone that has had a lot of depth and lyricism. Like, for me, in many ways, I feel like Wretch 32 walked so that Dave could run. And
that's a fucking good point, bro.
Do you know what I mean?
And that's a good point.
So to see this kind of behavior, it seems contradictory. And I say it's contradictory because I do understand that, you know, there is emotions involved, and I understand he's saying that, like, you know, the heart wants what it wants. But by the same token, when you're describing love, there has to be a certain platonic love and a fraternal love and respect for your friend, where on top of the fact that he's your brethren, he's locked up.
And not only that, but he's also godfather to the child. You get what I mean? So that just shows you the reverence that Wretch had for him to name him godfather. Well,
apparently Scorcher said to him, like, take care of my girl while I'm locked up. And, you know, I just feel like, you know, we all, like I said, for me, we're at the point now where these are like almost unspoken rules amongst men and within the community, whereby it's like, I just feel like there's more fish in the sea, for lack of a better term. And like, I don't want to say I know these people, and like I said, as artists, I respect both of them, but it does feel like a real shame that, and I feel like it's not the way, he doesn't really carry himself in any kind of way to make it look like he's vulnerable or he's the butt of this whole situation. But you know, for me, I feel bad like someone like Scorcher. He's kept quite a solid, dignified position throughout this whole thing. Because a lot of brothers will crash out over this kind of stuff. A lot of brothers crash out over a lot less.
But you know what? You gotta respect it because there's children involved. But there's two things that you mentioned. I can't remember the second one, but I would say in terms of his artistry, I remember the second thing now. In terms of the artistry, like, fully respects Wretch for his artistry and the way that he carries himself in terms of like the righteousness and that. But and the latest album, bro, is sick. Yeah, absolutely sick. But you know what was the problem with me listening to the album? It was hard to separate what I know he's done, because that is the content of your character versus what you're putting down in the record. You get me? Because I found like there's spaces, you know, he's clever with words, isn't it? So there were spaces in which he was saying certain things that was alluding to it, but in a kind of airy way, you know, whether he was kind of justifying it or breezing over it, or I feel like in some ways he was even saying, there's one bar where he says, you know, somebody that he's close with, that person not check for him now, but that person knows he would bleed for them. And I'm like, there's the contradiction here, because in the same token, like, what you've done is you've chosen a woman over your friend. That's what you've done in terms of, like, there's bare women out here, and Wretch is, you get me, Wretch is a celebrity out here, you get me? He could get most gal that he wanted. There's bare gal out here, bruv. You get me?
It's almost like, and I know that it's much easier said than done, but sometimes it's kind of like, you almost have to, it's like a switch you have to switch off in it. You see your man's gal, she might be the Chrisest gal ever. But from when it's let's like, if it's a relative's partner, or when I see like my cousin, for example, or my brethren, this girl can be 10 out of 10. But to me, that aspect of how I perceive her, that's lock off. That's lock off. If it's if that's my cousin's girl, she's my cousin.
But then he speaks to something that you said earlier on in one of the other podcasts about delayed gratification. Being a man, being able to hold yourself and as a dignified person. You get me? Like, that doesn't, the Wretch that we know in the music doesn't align itself with this particular thing. You get me? So it's not really a thing to lambast Wretch. Like, it is what it is. We are where we are. But the reason is to say, like, this is not an example of what building community is. You get me? Like, as brothers, we should be locking arms and holding each other accountable and looking after each other's.
And if anything else, I personally feel like before any public discussions take place, some restitution has to be made to Scorcher. Like, I'm not sure that, I don't know whether that's happened anyway, but it's like, before you're writing complex, you know, amazing lyrics about it, before you're chatting to Zizi about it, you have to hold a cussing or something from your boy.
But you know what? Like, I would, if that was my boy, I probably would never talk to him again. But if he came to me and said, bro, and just apologized, rather than trying to make it look like anything else, and I don't know behind closed doors what's happened. Scotch has dropped a few subliminals on his social media over the last few weeks that would suggest that he's not feeling the situation. That aside, if it was me and a man come to me, I'd respect him more if he just said, blood, I shouldn't have, I fucked up, I'm sorry. I'd be like, you know what? Whatever, you get me, and keep it moving.
And it's tough as well, because, like, don't get me wrong, I mean, you could argue Wretch 32 has continued to be in a relationship for 10 years. I think they have a child together. Yeah. Which on the one hand shows that it wasn't like, you know, a fleet of fancy and it's like I wanted a nut of it. I wanted something to get. But at the same time, that can also make it even more difficult for Scorcher to kind of deal with as well. Yeah. And I guess for us, we don't talk too much about it because there's other men involved in it. But on the base of the code, it's like, I completely agree with you that we can't have that as an example, because these guys have been they're fortunate because they are talented, gifted artists, and they will have gratification, and they are still going to have an element of respect in the spaces that they're in, irrespective of what happens. Not everybody has that. Yeah. And for you to take that away from somebody can be perceived as a much bigger violation. And like I said, you know, Helen of Troy started the war. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She started the war, and that's how that's the power that the misuse
power
of love
of
and
pum.
and that's the power. Nas has a tune called Pussy Kills.
Yeah,
he has a tune called Pussy Kills, and I'm not trying to objectify no one's gal. I'm just saying that this is why it's important to practice delayed gratification. This is why it's important that you cannot objectify every woman you see, no matter how she looks. You have to look. Do you know what I mean? Just because you can, don't mean you should.
Yes.
And that's something that people have to take on board sometimes. That I've true story. Like I've been at a dinner with friends, and a brethren's gone toilet, and his girl slid me her number. Now, some people might think, oh yeah, well, but there's not a lot of pride in that, man. Sometimes, there's times where your friendship and the mutual respect you have between somebody else has a lot more longevity than whatever your sexual attraction might be to somebody. And that's how people have to look at it sometimes, that it's what's going to, because, not that we're involved in it, but men have to look at it these ways, because it's like, not that I'm involved in it and it's their private business as far as I'm concerned, but it's cost of relationship. It's going to strain relationships between siblings. It's also, we've lost out on what could be some amazing music and some amazing collaborations, and people increasing their artistic potential. So I'm not gonna go on and condemn people, but it's not code. It's not the code. And but I say a few subliminals here and there is a much more mature way to deal with it as a man than a lot of people would. So I rate Scorcher for that, to be honest with you.
I like you said, there's kids involved now. You get, I'm showing you. Wretch has had kids with the same woman now, and it's kind of like it gets complicated. So I feel like where we are, it would be honourable now for Wretch to make that situation. I say Wretch because this is the situation we're talking about, but any man in that situation would have to kind of try hard to make that, and I feel like he's doing that. So credit where credit is due, but the first thing is not cold, like you said. But like you said, with families involved and whatever, which is what leads me to the next point. Something you sent me about, because we always talk about building strong families so we can build strong communities and so forth and so on. And you sent me something over Instagram talking about children growing up in two parents households and that rising. Do you want to?
Just very briefly, we're just defying the stereotype, and both in the places like America, the CDC have reported that a lot more African American men are becoming actively involved in their children's lives and remaining within the home, and over here as well, that a lot more children within our community are growing up in two-parent households. Wow.
I did a bit digging on this and looked at the stats, and it's not as white it seems, because what you sent me straight away, there was the background picture was a black family, and it just said 70% of children are now growing up in two-parent households, and I was like, it doesn't say black. You get what I mean? So I looked up the numbers, and basically overall in America, it's gone up to 70% of children that are growing up within two-parent households, but at the same time reporting, which was between 2020 to 2025, it's the amount of black children in America growing up in two-parent household is between 37 and 42%. So I kind of wanted to see what the numbers were between white children and Hispanic children, being as though they're kind of the other main demographics that we hear about in America. And it's 67 to 78%. So that's 67 to 78% of white children growing up in two-parent households. And for the Hispanic community, it's between 55 and 61%. So I wanted to see what it would be for the UK. And in terms of the amount of children growing, funnily enough, the amount of children growing up in two-parent household in the UK overall it mirrors the US, so 70%. The amount of black children growing up in two-parent households also mirrors the amount of black children growing up in, so that's between 37 and 42%. And for white children in Britain, growing up in two-parent households, 78 to 81%. So there's a bit of nuance there. And I was a bit...
Had us fooled.
Yeah. You get what I mean? Like that was a piece of information that kind of, because even my sister sent it to me, and she was like, "I love this," and I was like, "This is the second time I've got this now. I need to look into it because the way that it's just like painting blackface on anything." And just giving us any.
It's like putting black people in gravy adverts and Sainsbury's adverts, doing up gravy, making you think you think it's all blessed, Black people
so, mayonnaise adverts. I mean that's not. It is what it is, you know what I mean? I think the message in that is, one, when we see these stats, we need to not be confused, but the message still stands, and this is what we're banging on about all the time. Yeah. Strong families create strong communities, you know what I mean? And strong communities make sure that we don't get pushed around, whether it be locally or globally, you get what I mean? Like when as a black man, you have to think twice sometimes about the laws in certain countries if you want to go and visit them, because the disregard that they have for black people in general, you get, I'm showing you, like, and as we'll get into this podcast, there is very stark examples of how we are just generally disregarded and disrespected as black people. So and that is actually a sentiment that's increasing, and we have to be very aware of that as our communities are becoming more marginalized, and we're seeing a resurgence and a spreading of fascism and right-wing politics across mainland Europe and the rest of it. So you know, it's mad. Got to click up. You know, it's mad. It's some of the things that we spoke about, early on in this podcast, is coming to fruition. And one of the things we spoke about in the car was when I said, now Trump's in, we're in a right-wing era. People that are working in DEI jobs start looking for other jobs. Yeah. And another thing that came out, American stat, 106,000 jobs have been lost just for black women. Yeah. And the reason cited for these lost in jobs is because of they're cutting their DEI initiatives. So let's just put this into perspective. DEI was introduced to benefit black people first and foremost. Black people did not benefit. They weren't the primary beneficiaries. In fact, they were far behind when it comes to like white women, the LGBT community. Black people didn't benefit from. Well, not only that, at a time where that kind of legislation was introduced into mainstream culture in places like America, started to see this massive increase in incarceration rates and the initiation of like the war against drugs. Yeah. So a lot of people argue like towards the latter part of the 20th century and even in the 21st century now, black people experience more incarceration and more brutality and more marginalization than they did during the civil rights era. Because they're turning up the volume, and we'll get into we'll get into that later on in today's podcast. But I say all that to say, DEI was introduced to benefit black people, but they didn't benefit. No. And then now that it's being cut, black women are losing their jobs. Yeah. So if you look across like the jobs that have been lost, every other racial group has stayed the same in terms of jobs lost, or like in some places increased, but there's been 4% job losses across America for black women in particular. Now, I didn't really look into the stats for black men and all the other stuff, but it was because of the stark like change in terms of the employment status of black women in America. It was crazy when I looked at that and said to myself, wow, you get me? Like, this is exactly what I said. And again, the reason cited was DEI. As soon as I seen that happen, I said, you know what? They're going to come for... It's like the backlash of, everyone talks about Andrew Tate or Donald Trump. It's because there's been so much left-wing leanings. Yeah. One thing I would also add to that as well is how Black Lives Matter as a sentiment should always stand. Yeah, you get what I'm showing you? It should always matter. Like, that's not it. But this is where, as a community, and especially in the US, they went wrong because we didn't have any ownership over this. Well, the one person that even tried to start Black Lives Matter UK, Sasha Johnson, was shot in the face, isn't it? Well, no, let's not get there, bro. Yeah, I'm talking about the woman that started Black Lives Matter in the US. She was gay. Yeah, and she didn't start it though. That's what I'm saying. But they placed her as a figurehead because a lot of people have this misconception that Black Lives Matter began as an initiative in response to George Floyd's very open, conspicuous murder, but it actually began way before that, and some of the stark examples would have been the murder of Sean Bell. Yeah. So Sean Bell was a man who was at his bachelor's party. He was sitting in his car minding his own business, and I think 4 New York police officers approached him and fired about 20-something shots into the car. And
or maybe no, say that because they were using like Glocks, they're police officers. The amount of shots that was fired into the car, they would have had to reload to carry on firing, and a lot of them were acquitted. But he was basically on his about to get married and was at his bachelor party, sitting in the car minding his own business. And obviously, we can go through just the list of examples, but essentially, Freddie Gray was another catalyst for Black Lives Matter protests, where he was apprehended and in cuffs, was beaten and had his back broken by Missouri police as well. But what's actually happened with Black Lives Matter is a lot of the original leaders, at least 4 of them, have been killed under suspicious circumstances where they've been burned alive in their cars or shot in their heads and then burned in their cars. So these new leaders of BLM, a lot of people believe that they were appointed by liberal contingents who wanted to control the direction and the flow of these protests, and the actual BLM leaders have actually all died under very, very suspicious circumstances.
And you know what's mad? I mean, again, please understand the correlation. When I always say that we are being pushed around on a local level and a geopolitical level, that is a big example right there, because what's happened is these neoliberals have like put somebody in place to look after an initiative as big as Black Lives Matter, and this person or persons are taking funds from the community to push what they're supposed to be doing is helping the community grow and really expedite the initiatives of Black Lives Matter, not only as a sentiment, but also as a movement to make sure that people actually see Black Lives Matter. You get what I'm showing you? Making sure this is the whole thing. But then what they do is buy a big mansion and start having all these parties and blah, 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 whatever. And then when you look at the ethos of these said members of the BLM movement that were appointed by the liberals that you've mentioned, these people, their ethos is like anti-family, which is exactly what we're against.
It's individualistic, isn't it? And this is the thing. This is the thing that like this is the pattern that always seems to follow, is that liberal interests will do one of two things a lot of time when it comes to black progressivism, is that they will either find the least of us or those of us that have the least.
Yeah.
And it means that those are two groups that they are always able to manipulate, either financially with the financial incentives, or people that are prepared to debase themselves or to reduce the progressive movement for their own individual gain. And that means, you know, a lot of the time they'll take people who do not have the true interest and are not part of the grassroots things. And I guess today it's what they call like astroturfing, where you get like false movements, agent provocateurs, people that are just taken away from the movement. And, you know, a perfect example being after Martin Luther King's assassinated, both Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are two people who were part of the movement, but no one really appointed them as true successors. They have meetings with the FBI, and all of a sudden they become the replacement civil rights leaders who don't really attract the same scale of support from the African American or the diaspora in general. And then years down the line, they are embroiled in scandals where it's like just Jesse Jackson with these drugs and Al Sharpton with these drugs. And they're almost placed in these positions, because they were very young at the time, where they can be pushed around and then being like used as like these faux poster child. So they, and as white toy compounds, when we speak about marginalization and lack of initiatives, they go, well, you've got Al Sharpton, you've got Jesse Jackson, you've had Obama, and these are people who are placed as mimics to the true progressives, but aren't really representative of those. Because one thing about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, for example, neither of them were affiliated with any political party on the America spectrum. And then people will be like, Obama, he's the future, and and Jesse Jackson's crying. But it's like, you know that Martin Luther King, even before he died, said that the Democrats were no better than the Republicans, and that he was trying to almost integrating his people into a burning house. So that can't be the true representation. And it's in the same thing with these kind of, and what it seems to with DEI is that, like you said, we've never been the primary benefactors of initiatives that we always lead. And this seems to be a frequent occurrence with our community, is that we are used as the tip of the spear, as resistance to oppression. And then after that, everybody else enjoys the spoils of our war and sacrifice. And we're kind of over, I think we're over that. I'm tired of it. I'm tired, like I said, of liberals trying to falsify or be fake about their allyship, these kind of terms like allies and the rest of it.
That's why we love Trump.
Yeah.
Because he ain't fake about nothing. You get what I'm showing you? He's showing you, like you always say, he's not down for you, man. You get us, man. You get me? Yeah. He's not on it. So let's get our pause. But let's get our things in gear. You get what I'm showing you. But to speak to these leaders that have been put in place by liberals, it's the same thing that happens in African countries. This is why I say the correlation is the same.
Exactly.
You look at the playbook, what they do locally to us in our communities. You get what I'm showing you. Then it's the same thing they do on a governmental scale. You get me?
And
they overthrow governments and
replace them with people that are easy to manipulate, people that can be bought, people of low virtue. And I also want to add as well that one of the previous episodes we were discussing the fact that the diaspora, whether it's in terms of descendants of chattel slavery, be they African Americans or Caribbeans, that there was a lot of conversation about the fact that we are one of the only demographics that are out-earned by our women counterparts. And now you see now that the same women that were placed in these positions are now starting to see the erasure of their jobs. And it starts to feel a bit convenient that, like, we are in a patriarchy, and so when you have a matriarchal contingent in that patriarchy, it's almost as if they don't want us to be men in our community to be as empowered as other groups of men. And then what happens is
say that again, because I say that again.
Please. So basically, we live in a patriarchy. It's a man's world, and in every community, in arguably every prosperous community compared to us, men are the top earners within that group. I am not saying that women shouldn't be earning, but by the fact that we live in a patriarchy, men are the top earners in that group. We are the only community where our women out-earn us. Now, the problem when that comes is that on top of all other problems, then women will naturally develop resentment because they are occupying matriarchal roles where they're taking care of families and raising people and nurturing families, but also having to take on the roles of having to make money, and by that same token, acquire resources, and by that token, be protectors. So there's always that schism between why they see black men as shiftless and can't get proper jobs and all the rest of it. So that resentment builds anyway. And then that is empowered further by liberal contingents where they empower the women and not the men. But then they give them this false idea that they're having progress, only to come and now take it back less than 4 years.
But why do they do that? Why do they empower the women and not the men?
Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer, and to also create a matriarchal society, which obviously has a lot of benefits, but within a patriarchy, it means that if these are the primary earners, you can't compete properly.
You can't compete. We as black men cannot compete with our white male counterparts
or Asian
counterparts if we're not afforded the same opportunities as them. Which is the reason why, again, I'll go back to the same thing. The nucleus of this whole thing for me is family first, then community second. Because once you have a solid family that contributes to a solid community, then people cannot just come in and divide. You get what I'm showing you? And then you'll be able to build things like businesses, solid businesses, which we'll get onto in the next conversation. Solid businesses where we can properly, educate like the people that will work within the business structure and also run solid businesses. So then we can then compete, because when we are a part of the ecosystem where we are selling, trading products and services and goods, then it's harder for you to remove or to discriminate against a community or a group. You get me? Just like with the Asian people.
And also what's important is, in a world which emphasizes capitalism, if the only instances of financial or economic prosperity are not seen in these conventional ways, because younger people don't see people that look like them prospering there, they're going to look to who the people are making money is. And so then you get this cycle whereby young black men in particular begin again to drift towards criminality and turning their back on academia because, well, you lot ain't making no money. But the brothers that are getting money, the man on the road, the trappers, and them, they are getting money. So it's all very deliberate. It's all very deliberate. It drives a wedge between black men and women. It makes them resentful, but it also will make young men think that I can't get money in a conventional way like these other men. I got to go where people are making money. And again, this carrot is dangled in front of them, where it's like, I have to be the holy trinity of sports, entertainment, or criminality.
You know what? And this is where, again, we are talking a lot to the leaders within our community, and, kind of appealing to them to remove the ego in some places, not all, but in some places, remove the ego and come together and work together, because the thing is, consumers will always consume. That's what they're here to do. But the leaders the leaders within our community need to find ways to redirect the buying power of our community back into our community. It's not about showing up and saying, it's Black Pound Day today, spend all your money with black like companies, which is the next conversation we're gonna get into. I love those transitions there, but no, it wasn't even purposefully. Like literally, what I'm trying to say is, if we are as leaders gonna come together, we need to make sure that our products and services work for our community in a way that they can redirect their buying power. We can't say, for instance, like, oh, go to I'm trying not to go to this black hair shop which is far up the road when where all the other shops are, you know what I mean, that sell the products cheaper, are in where everybody is, you know what I mean. You're asking someone to go out their way. We have to try and make these things convenient. Conversely, we also need to make sure we're giving proper service, you get me, in these places, because I'm not gonna lie, there's some food shops, some black food shops, where I would say if I owned those food shops, I would not employ black people from within that area. I would go to the local university, and this has happened actually, where I've said, gone into certain black shops and said, you know what, this ain't gonna last long. The food's nice, like what they're trying to do, the owners are trying to do great, but they're either scaling too quickly or they're employing the wrong people, because these black staff, they feel like ends. They're just from the ends. They live up the road and they're just turning up late because they can't be bothered or whatever. Whereas if you go and employ university, and this particular business was in Lewisham, so you've got the university in New Cross. Goldsmiths. You got Goldsmiths just up the road. I'm sure you could find some people that are studying there that need a job. You give them a job there. They'll be happy with getting a food as well, because boy, students are broke. You get me? You want you dinner,
and if the food's good as well.
You get what I'm saying? So it was like, in my opinion, you're employing the wrong people. But let's move on to, I mean, again, solution. Let me say, leaders, we need to come together and make sure that we are, the effort should be in redirecting the buying power of our community back into the community by providing products and services that are not only just easy or competitive in terms of access, but competitive in terms of levels of service, man. Just basic stuff, pushing up your mouth when man's coming in, or getting my order wrong if I get home and like I don't eat chicken, so I've got chicken instead of fish. You get me? You've given me somebody that's just poor service, lackadaisical service. Is just stupid.
So far as a solution in terms of this massive employment deficit with black women and black people in general, what are we saying for a solution? Because I feel like, you know, is it that we try to have these initiatives actually stick, or we make sure that we are all being empowered rather than a particular group, and not have? Because I feel like it's as our dependency on this the liberal contingent or corporation and stuff is still a problem, whereby it was like a false image of us having a seat at the table. And it makes me wonder how secure that seat was if it's been able to be pulled away so easily. I think
this is the thing. I feel like we can build our own table, and I feel like this is like the days of the initiatives are dead. We're in the right wing era, as we've discussed. So that means we're not going to be afforded anything. And this is the reason why I personally like Trump, because it's forcing us now as leaders, in particular, and thought leaders within our community, to come together and start thinking about ways to do things better that will benefit our community. Now, I say that to say, it for me is not about trying to reach out to anybody to get get jobs. You get, I'm showing you, we should be creating our jobs for people within our community. Now, it would, in my opinion, this is more of a longer term measure, because we don't have those companies in place yet. But I would say, again, I said it earlier, we need to remove the ego in some spaces, because sometimes, like I want to use the food shop situation as an example. Black food shops are abundant, especially in South London. We, instead of everyone having a separate food shop, say if like in Catford alone, you know Catford, you're just round, you're in the ends, you get, I'm showing you. I could think of 5 to 10 black food shops in Catford or in and around Catford, you get, I'm showing you, not far stretching. Now, some of them have brilliant cooks. Some of them don't. Some of them you can tell that their aesthetics, the decoration, the attention to detail, the level of service outweighs that of the food. You get what I'm showing you? Like, you've got different things, you've got supply chain, you've got all these different things. Now, if those main members of those food shops were to come together and say, let's just do a franchise, and I would do what I do best. I'm the cook. I don't know nothing about supply chains and you know, stock and all these other things that are essential within a business. So therefore, let me not want to just be the front man and be like, yeah man, I'm my business, this and rare. You get me? Like, it's a case of, okay, cool, this is what I do. I'm going to do this to the best of my ability, and I'm going to train other chefs to cook like me. So then if you go to the Sydenham branch, the chicken will taste the same in the Sydenham branch as it does in the Catford branch and in the Lewisham branch and in wherever branch, you know what I mean? And if we did that, we could then employ our own. And then we could employ our own in spaces that you don't even need to go to this. Like, there's people that work for McDonald's that don't work in McDonald's. They work in the offices. You get what I'm showing you?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So, yeah. They work for McDonald's, but they don't touch a burger.
You get what I'm showing you? So, like, we need to build our businesses to the level in which we are competing on that level, and then we can employ our people. But alongside that, we need the educational element, because you cannot bring home training, because some people have poor home training. You can't bring that to work. Yeah. You have to come, like, it amazes me how people from the ends will get a job in the local food shop and show poor, like, levels of service.
Agreed.
And then go and work for a H&M. Yeah. And be, oh, do you want...
You get what I'm showing you?
It's
so true to respectability politics, and it's funny because, you know, racists tend to use the term race card when they talk about black people when we discuss issues of race, but I have noticed we only tend to use the race card with each other. We almost approach one another and deal with each other with the supposition that our poor performances or our lack of standards will be overlooked because it's another black person. Another black person will give us a certain level of leeway because we're both black, bro. I made a mistake in it, blah blah. And then we have to be like, well, I can't cuss them out because there's another black person in it, and then they're gonna be like, who you talking to? I was supposed to be, and we need to give ourselves the same reverence that the way you would walk into Rolex. You wouldn't walk into Rolex with certain airs and graces, and you need to treat the Caribbean food shop the same, to be quite honest. When you're working in the Caribbean food shop, you know the ones when you see that, not anyone in particular, when the photo's up, when there's the celebrity there in it, they see how they fawn over the celebrity, or they treat someone a certain way, or a real person, or the mayor of the borough comes in. How you deal with that person is how you should deal with any black person that's coming and finishing their shift working, you know, as a postman or do you know what I mean, or a nurse. And that's the thing, we need to respect our custom.
Right.
We have to respect our custom as well as our product.
This is going to take time. So even if imagine if some people did come together and create that kind of a business that I just suggested. My suggestion, first and foremost, would be to hire outside of the community people that are hungry and willing to provide the levels of service that is needed for the business to thrive first and foremost. Do you get what I mean? Because just hiring somebody up the road because maybe you can get them for £2 cheaper an hour, it's going to kill your business long term. You get what I'm showing you? And that is exactly what we're seeing. So in terms of a solution, that's the one I offer amongst other things. But I've always said, connect with us, because we're going to be doing things to bring certain leaders of the community together so we can start really making our, you know what I mean? We're not just here chatting. We're here saying, like, just as a part of being here, who's doing something.
Because it's so, like you said, there's so much more we can extend that, whether it's like we're involved in supply chain, what's called dark kitchens, which is where someone might own a commercial property that has the facilities. Right. So then it means that, you know, rather than just having to maybe deal with, if someone maybe makes the food, but necessarily can't always keep up with commitments, you can just do a pop-up. Rather than, you know, constantly dealing with the overheads. And then you also allow that up-and-coming chefs and other cooks and other culinary experts to showcase their talents to the community. And it can be done. It can be done. Like I've seen a lot of Caribbean chefs now are now elevating the cuisine towards status of hawking where it definitely should be. Yes. And they're doing great things. Dominic Taylor, who was in the Langham, doing the good front room. I've got Natty Ken Cook, who's in the Greyhound in Peckham. It's amazing as well. There's even a girl called Jaga Wise, a Caribbean girl, and she makes her own IPAs, like her own independent ale. Okay. So she make it independent. So, you know,
we're diversifying.
It's diversifying as well, So it's just how we can all, you know, make these leaders in the culinary industry and the alcohol, the beverage industry, everyone come together.
Shout out to Satchmo as well. Satchmo Cocktail Rooms.
Yes.
Cocktail,
absolutely.
sorry.
So we just need to have these people come together. But But most importantly, people giving over our piece to like these hackathons and sexy fishes and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And we have people in our community who are equal or even more, have superior capability to create levels of that cuisine much more cost effectively, and we need to support that as much as possible.
And you know what's mad as well? Like, as much as we sometimes think that we're just selling to our community, do you know how much people love our... I mean, it might sound like a silly thing to say, but people from outside our community love our food.
Listen, Chinese man, everywhere's oxtail now. And Koreans love fried chicken now.
Listen, I'm showing that you get me. So...
Yeah.
Only if we were, I say that to say, if we were able to have solid business structures, you would see the amount of people from outside the community start invested in the community because they just like the food. As much as they like the clothes and the fashion, we are the primary cultivators of our culture, but we are not the primary beneficiaries of it, and we need to redirect that.
Absolutely. Because even like, you know, obviously Magnum and tonic wine, there's like another one called Wagwan now, and I'm very sure that's not black owned. I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, I'm not too sure it is because I've heard rumors. I mean, there's more to come, but there's conversations going on around Satchmo, which is the reason why I big up Satchmo Rum Cocktails, because they're making a very good lean into the alcoholic beverage industry and are going to be kind of challenging the status quo, and it is a black owned company.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, but moving on quickly, Swiss and Black Pound Day. So incidentally, I didn't want to have this conversation without Swiss. Me and Swiss have had a few conversations prior to this whole thing that I'm going to unpack.
Very, very talented man.
Yes,
very talented.
For those of you who don't know, Swiss is the younger brother of Mega Man, who is the founder of Soul Solid Crew.
Yeah,
who were very instrumental in pushing the culture musically in the turn of the century, and
earlier part of the century. And I would go so far as to say, particularly in Swiss's case, should probably be credited as much as like a Gigs, and not to take anything away from Gigs, but so far as being a pioneer of the road rap, like very instrumental in that. Like some of the early tunes, and I won't say the experimental, but some of the early, the latter part of the So Solid run, where Swiss was kind of having tunes like Grimy and like working with Cream Cartel, and a lot of the progression of that kind of darker garage sound going towards not necessarily grime, which I think was more Wiley's direction, but more towards that kind of road rap. Swiss was a big part of that.
He's a big part of that, definitely. He was also Wretch 32 before Wretch 32.
There you go.
You get, I'm sure
exactly that.
So in the same way that you
such
said,
a good point as well. Yeah,
Wretch walked so that Dave could run. I feel like that started before. That started with.
I'd be inclined to agree. Yes,
with everybody in Soul Solid doing the MC thing. I think Asher D as well was doing the rap thing as well.
Yeah,
but the way that, and taking nothing away from Asher D, obviously, bad boy rapper, but the way that Swiss did his thing, you get me, like, was different. You get me, that the way that he glassed it with that conscious rap.
Now you say that, that period there was that, for me, definitely went top 5 or top 3 at one point
in Soul Solid.
No, I mean in rap.
I was about to say Soul Solid.
There was that little period, just like that So Solid thing, where that they was kind of getting pushed out the industry. Swiss kind of put the whole thing on his back. But he was still working with like Seth and like with Asher D and them lot. And then there was a point at which it was, because it was just before that. There was one point where it was like just North London. Was just North Londoners had everybody, because they had Dynamite, they had Sway, they had Akala, Chip, they had North Star. At one point there, North London was such a problem, boy. Don't get me wrong, they still a problem. But there was one point when it was like, right.
I'm gonna rep for. I'm not from South London originally, but I'm gonna rep for South and say you can't. Certain man like from. I'm just gonna say from PDC, because I don't want to.
But I'm saying underground. South was 30. But I'm saying. The North Band was like all kind of crossing over, because they was crossing over. Because Akala had Ill Estate, and obviously Dynamite had gone clear, Sway had gone clear as well. Chip was about to do his thing as well. So I mean like that. But then because even Ironic was doing the thing, you get me? But obviously at the time, South in terms of like road rap, PDC, obviously SN1 doing their things, or even there's SE148 as well in Lewisham as well, and so. Boy, but going back to what I was saying, I would definitely argue Swiss was definitely leading that.
Yes.
Definitely leading that.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, Sway, after, I mean, you know, you're fast forwarding, for those of you who don't know, like Soul Silent era, you're talking 2000, which is when they kind of had the height of their success.
Yeah.
So you're talking like 25 years ago now.
Yep.
You get me? So let's just say fast forward 20 years. Swiss,
so ahead of his time. Sonically, definitely ahead of his time.
Absolutely. Swiss diversified into what is now the Black Pound Day, and Black Pound Day being an initiative after the whole George Floyd debacle and everything that happened there. He put down roots for a day where it was culturally habitual for black people to spend within the community. So to spend with black businesses every first Saturday of the month. Now, some of you may know Black Pound Day and know that story, but don't know where it come from.
Yeah.
Swiss was the guy who was responsible for that.
Yep.
He then went on to have a concession store in John Lewis, in I think what was the John Lewis in Westfield in East London, which is Stratford.
Yep.
Where he was selling products from companies within the black community.
Yes.
So whether it be books, trinkets, bags, so forth and so on. He then opened the store in Westfield in Stratford called Black Pound Day, where again he just opened up the whole thing to, you know, all the companies that sold products within that store were black owned companies. He then went on to open a store in Westfield in Shepherd's Bush. And I'm gonna say big up, a massive shout out to the Made in Africa brand. Because they was the ones that really, for me, in terms of the things that I would be interested in purchasing, they were the one that made me go to the Black Pound Store Day, which is one of the issues that I had with the Black Pound Store Day, the Black Pound Store. So a long time ago, me and Swiss had a conversation about this whole thing and a couple of the issues that I was having. But anyway, before I get into that, I'm going mad. I want to say first and foremost, and I said this to Swiss, massive shouts, bro, because for what he was able to do, like, that is strong, bro. And he, like, when I said it to him, he did say to me, look, I didn't do it on my own. I did have a team, you know what I mean? But he started the movement on his own. You get what I'm saying? And I think that's what the important part is. And he pushed it and pushed it even more than, you know, like, if you've got a team, I would go as far as to say he was doing 60% of the work. Because now, you know, a few weeks ago, he put out a message talking about the reasons why the Black Pound stores had closed and the impact that it had on his health. He was actually having to physically, mentally exude so much energy to keep the thing afloat, with little to no support from certain aspects of the community in the ways that we would potentially expect it. But I say that to say, while I acknowledge his effort and the ethos of the movement, and like massive shouts to him for what he's done, you get me? Like some of the issues that I had with Black Pound, the Black Pound Day, the stores, was when I went into those stores, there wasn't many things that I personally would be interested in buying, you know what I mean? So there were some books in there that were interesting, but for the most part, I had those books already. You get what I'm showing you? So it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to buy another one because it's in Black Pound Day store. Some of the garments and the bags and the trinkets and things like that were kind of leaning to like African culture with the collars and stuff like that. And that's me definitely not taking anything away from that, but it's not necessarily something that the youth within black culture are going to be buying into. So my thing was, where's the trap stars? Where is what's his name?
Clint's thing, Cortez.
Clint's thing, or well, that's Nike, innit? So that's all. Yeah, that's.
I thought it was like more of a collab that he did, but
yeah, it might be to be fair.
Then, there's also, is it Denim Tears? Because I think that is that originally a guy who's one of the designers at Supreme and started his own thing. I might be wrong though. Hopefully someone corrects on that. But
well, somebody corrects us in the comments. But then there's also like J2K's
absolutely,
footwear brand. Like the Made in Africa brand was in there. And I'm saying, like, in my mind, I'm looking around, I'm saying, where are all these black-owned brands that are doing bits online? You get what I'm showing you? Why do they not have a little corner showcasing their brands and so forth? And I raised it to Swiss, to which he, and I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but one of the things that I'm going to say that he said was, you know, some of the brands didn't want to support. Now, I'm not saying that these are the brands that I've mentioned, but for me, it's a damn shame if it is, because this is the sort of thing that would have made Black Pound Store Day, for me, attract the people that it needed to attract. Yeah. You get me? Like, you could have, if, say, for instance, Trapstar is doing a new jacket or whatever, the first place you can get it, see it, you get me? You do a little pop-up with a DJ in the window of Black Pound Day store. You get me? And you can go there and see it. You get me? If J2K is doing new trainers, you can go there. The one thing I wanted to buy J2K's trainers, right? But the reason why is because I like to see what things look like on my foot. I hate buying things online. I prefer to go to the store. For me, that would have been a reason I would have gone there and probably bought other things while I was there. You get me? Like, and this is the thing that just jars me, because I'm like, whoa, that was a movement. That was a staple. You get what I'm showing you? And then it left, you know, with all the effort that Swiss was putting into the business, he was exerting himself, exerting his energy. And, you know, for those people that want to know the full story, go on to Swiss's IG, and he's got 2 stories on there, and he tells you the full thing. So I'm not even going to try and like word for word tell you how it affected his health and all the things, the money that he'd put in and all these sort of things. But I say all that to say,